Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics. This week's questions answer video, why don't you like double action, single action handguns? I guess it was a matter of time before I did a video on this question. I've been asked this multiple times. It comes up in classes sometimes. I carry striker fired handguns or internal hammerless, depending on what we're talking about. But I'm not a fan of double action, or single action only. Not a huge fan of revolvers either. And there's good reason for that. But it kind of gets into, I guess the easiest way to explain it is I'm not a gun hobbyist or a gun collector. I have more than one firearm, obviously, but I don't collect firearms for the sake of owning them, much in the same way that I don't collect antique tools. I don't see a need to own an antique drill when I have a brand new DeWalt that works great. Sure, I appreciate the lineage of the drill, but I'm not eager to go out and build something with a hand-operated manual drill. I'll just grab the lithium battery-powered DeWalt and go to work. And the same way I view firearms. To me, they're functional tools. And while there is some aesthetic appreciation that I can have for the craftsmanship that goes into a certain type of firearm, that doesn't necessarily mean that I want to own it. That being said, I'm no stranger to double action, single action guns. My first duty gun as a law enforcement officer was double action, single action Beretta 92. Later on in my law enforcement career, I had to carry the SIG 229. I'm comfortable with and competent with double action, single action platforms. I just don't care for them myself. I don't really see a distinct advantage provided by a hammer gun that I can't get from a quality striker fired gun such as an M&P, an FN, a Glock, so on and so forth. So I don't really have a great deal of nostalgia for double action, single action firearms, even though I consider myself to be pretty proficient with them, especially since I carried them for so long as a duty gun. Just not a huge fan. My first carry gun, personally owned carry gun, was an HK USP 45 Tactical. To this day, I still have no idea how I concealed it, but I did. And I carried that gun for a number of years until I was introduced to the wonderment that is striker fired. Now, it all goes into personal preference, and I do understand that. My personal attraction to striker fired handguns is the fact that every trigger pull is going to be the same. Everything is consistent, and arguably the most important round being the first round, I don't have to depend on a heavier trigger pull and then make a switch to a lighter trigger pull. I feel like it's an outdated technology that has been surpassed, even though the first striker-fired handgun was patented in the late, almost early 1900s, late 1800s. It has come into its own as far as reliability is concerned. And I'm not a fan of single action only either, even though the straight pull to the rear trigger, such as that you're going to get from 1911, are really nice. I have my own reasons for not liking that platform. 8 rounds of I hope this works. And there are reliability factors there. Not saying that the platform can be unreliable, or can't be reliable, I should say, but it's not going to be as reliable long-term as you're going to get from a striker-fired handgun. It's important to note at this point that this video is an opinion. Someone asked my opinion and why I don't like something. So if you're disagreeing with anything I'm saying, then that is your opinion. Feel free to make your own video. This isn't me trying to attract the trolls or the haters. This is just my informed opinion based on my experience and in teaching. I don't really know what else to say about the topic other than, to kind of reiterate, like, I don't have this romanticism involved in firearms. I may appreciate the craftsmanship and the functionality that went into a predecessor firearm that was considered revolutionary at its time and performed just well, but I'm not really inclined to own that gun just on the fact that it exists. Same reason I don't want to own the weapons that were made famous at Agincourt. I just don't have that deep of an interest. My interests pretty much remain academic. So I don't need to own a Smith & Wesson 5906 when I can just have it referenced on the internet or in a book or something like that if I happen to need that information in my life. Now, I do try to stay proficient on double action, single action handguns because they do occasionally come through classes, but and of course, this may just be the students that I attract, but in my keeping of records of guns that come through classes, double action, single action are in the extreme minority. The only category being more rare would be single action only, such as your Browning high powers, your 1911 type platforms. I think the only peculiarity that I haven't seen is like a LDA type that you used to see. I think maybe Paraordnance still makes them, but I haven't seen that ever in a class to date. But the most common handgun is Glock, followed by M&P. CZs are becoming more popular, but by and far everything's striker fired. because that's considered the newest evolution of the technology as it stands, because it took them, I guess, 100 years to get the idea popular, get the idea right. People in the firearms community can be very resistant to change when a new technology comes along, so you still see people who prefer double action, single action. I'm just not one of them. Guns are tools to me. I don't really get emotionally attached to an operating system or a type of firearm. I'm not even brand loyal. I like Glocks, but I'm currently carrying an M&P because the configuration is exactly what I want. So that goes back to the point of the DeWalt. I don't need an antique drill when I have the latest and greatest technology right in my hand. Now, we can get into a brand argument over if Milwaukee's better than DeWalt if you want, but this isn't like a carpentry channel or a woodworking channel or a power tool channel. So if you ask me that question, I probably won't make a video on it. I hope this answers the question. Don't get me wrong, double action, single action guns are great if that's what you want to use. Single action only guns are great if that's what you want to use. There's positives and negatives to everything. But I hope this answers the question. If you have any other questions on this topic or any other topic, feel free to drop them in the comments section below. I'm Aaron Cow with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.